Stay tuned. We got a whole lot of sports coming up for you up next on Sports Bar. All right, so we're back down to 2 guests. Ashton could not make it today because of school-related issues, so we're just going to move on with who's left over, I guess.
Sounds like a pretty lame excuse to me, honestly. School-related issues?
School-related,
No.
like school comes first.
She has a job, like, come on now.
Fair enough.
So I guess let's just start off. There's been some big news that popped up that Megatron's retiring. So let's just comment on that for a bit. How do y'all feel? Do you think like he might have a few years? Do you think he might come back later?
I mean, he's only 30 years old, if I'm not mistaken. So, I mean, you know, in wide receiver years, I mean, yeah, you don't play generally as long as, say, a Tom Brady kind of quarterback, but, you know, 30 is still very young. I mean, I was saddened to see him retire. Now, I mean, I think I would honestly rather see him retire than him not play for the Lions. Not that I'm a Lions fan, but it's just that he's one of those players that had such a storied career in one city that in that respect, I'm glad he's, I guess, ending it with the Lions. But I wouldn't be surprised at all if he took this coming year off and then decided, you know, I think I want to go get some of that you know, Andre Johnson kind of money where I'm no longer effective, but I'm going to get, you know, that premium payout. So
I mean, he'll still be effective, though.
Well, I mean, yeah, but
compared to Andre Johnson.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, and Andre Johnson's a few years older, but I think the comparisons to Barry Sanders are they're strong here and worth being discussed, because here's a guy who's a superstar at his position. Still, I mean, even with injuries and things like that, this guy is still better than, he's still a top 15 receiver in the league, no doubt. And just being, you know, on a Lions team where he only made the playoffs one time in his career, and to be utilized the way that he was utilized, I mean, he was going up for a lot of catches that were, you know, always in traffic and bringing things down. He took a lot of shots, and to see him go, I think is him saying, like, I see where the Lions are going, and it really doesn't appear to be up right now, unfortunately. But I could see, I could see him coming back, like you said, in a year or two. I think about Patrick Willis when I talk about that. I mean, Patrick Willis is kind of around that same age and was he took off, you know, he retired in spite of all the health stuff that's coming out right now with CTE and things like that. And he's come out and said that he's considering coming back. So I think this is something that we're going to start to see more and more, right, when players get around 30, because the health risks are very apparent with what's going on with the NFL right now. And so you got to weigh that. Yeah,
but it would be nice to see him land if he came back. I don't think he would come back for anyone that wasn't a contender. I mean, do you? Because I feel like he's coming back. If he does, it's for the ring. It's for that championship run, not, you know, getting paid $15 million to play on the Jaguars.
So where would you see him coming back to?
Well, I don't know. I mean, you know, for the most part, at least, you know, during these last 5 or 8 years or whatever, you know, people came back when they were too old and ineffective to the Patriots because they always knew, you know, they would have a run at it. Now, I'm not sure, you know, what that situation is going to be, you know, in maybe 2 years. The Panthers are probably going to be pretty good in 2 years. I mean, I don't see a lot of that team, you know, huge pieces really being detracted, hopefully. So maybe that's an option for him if he wants to make a Super Bowl run. But you know, obviously that's all up in the air because he just has retired. So
it's the choice between good and evil. Please, Calvin Johnson, do not go to New England.
I'd stop watching football.
I could not take that. I saw Brady get Randy Moss, who was starting, you know, the downslope of his career, and then he put up the most touchdowns in a single season. I really don't want to see Calvin Johnson do that because I really like Calvin Johnson, and once you go to the Patriots, I'm sorry, it's off the list for me.
It's over.
Like Brandon LaFell. Sort of forgot about that guy.
But the Panthers would be a really interesting thing because to pair him with Kelvin Benjamin, who he's, I mean, almost the exact same size, and to have someone to learn under like that, I mean, shoot, I'd bring Calvin Johnson on as a positional coach right now if you could get him somewhere and teach a guy like Kelvin Benjamin how to use his body effectively, because I don't think we've seen a receiver as large as Calvin Johnson utilize his body as effectively or I don't think we've seen a receiver like him do that.
Yeah.
And that would be a great mentor type thing for Kelvin Benjamin.
I would say that if that were a possibility, probably someone on that Panthers receiving core probably has to go elsewhere. I don't think there's enough money to go around to pay him, Benjamin, keep Olsen around, and then whatever we may or may not have to pay Funchess, depending on if he turns into the kind of player that we want him to.
Funchess and Kotchery.
Yeah,
The benefit, though, is that you
but-
have Benjamin on a rookie deal. He'll
Yeah.
still be on his rookie deal, at least for a couple years. I mean, the thing about Calvin Johnson is it's going to be a small window anyway. You're talking about
I guess
maybe
like
31, 32, that type of thing.
So it'd be like a 1 to 2 year deal.
Yeah, and you could get those guys. I mean, and I didn't even think about Devin Funchess. Same type of thing, a big-bodied receiver. He would be a great mentor for that group. But it also comes down to, do you want to have, when you line up 3 wide, do you want 3 6'5" guys out there? Because you're obviously sacrificing in speed. So it would be interesting, but right now it's the retirement talk, and he had a great career. And so for right now, it's goodbye to Calvin Johnson. But you never know. The door's still always open. Brett Favre, you know what I mean? Brett
Always
Favre.
coming back.
And we mentioned CT a moment ago, and I just thought I'd make a comment. It seems like every person that they have, done the autopsy and went through the test, once they were deceased, who played in the NFL, does come back with, okay, this person most likely had CTE, and do you guys feel like if that continues to be the case, is it going to be as shocking? Well, maybe not shocking, but is the public going to react in the same strong manner if every single person who comes back, with those tests after they have died has CTE? Because I almost feel like, even though obviously you could say that, well, certainly this is as big of a problem as it's ever been because all these people have CTE, but sometimes as a public, if we're exposed to that same thing over and over and over again, it really becomes a norm.
Desensitized.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I mean, what are y'all's thoughts?
I think
Because I feel
at
like
this
that
point,
could happen.
they've been making a lot of rules to change everything and make it safer, this, that, the other. But I feel like what the public wants is not later on, they'll make a ruckus if someone does end up getting injured or things like that. But I mean, while they're watching football, they want big hits, they want this. So I feel like, I don't know, it's sort of a give and take because.
I think the bigger thing is that you say, what does the public want? And we have this thing where, we want players to be healthy. We want to say that we're good and we care about these players. And yet, if by supporting, the NFL's numbers go up every year or every week. There's more people who watch football than the week before. The Super Bowl is going to be the most watched show of the year, most likely. It seems to always be up there. And so it's kind of that thing, we want our cake and we want it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't know. As far as fans go, I think it's really easy to become desensitized to this because, I mean, even speaking from a fan's perspective, I don't want to lose the NFL. I don't like the way that all the rules are even shifting to reduce contact. But something's got to be done. But I just don't want to see the NFL get to the point where it's flag. You know what I mean? If it starts to breach towards that,
7
I
on
think we're
7
better
at that
off.
point.
But I mean, the stories are coming out more and more. I mean, Antoine Randall, as recently as 2 weeks ago, came out and said if he could do it all over again, he'd have never played football at all, even at the college level. And that's sad when you hear about that, when these guys are in their late 30s and can barely walk and are having memory issues. And then it's no wonder you have your stars like Patrick Willis and Calvin Johnson going, hey, I'm only 30 years old right now. If I hang it up now, can I avoid that at least for a few more years? I don't know. If stars start dropping off, there will be things will get done. If they come out and say that it's for this reason, things will start to get done. But the NFL's got to be the one to take that initiative, and I don't know.
Well, you can go.
I was just going to say, I agree. The NFL definitely has to be the one to make something happen. But I feel like from a viewership point of view, I think it would take, so as bad as this would be, I would think it would take someone dying on the field in the Super Bowl before there was a real outcry of something that we've never seen before that would really threaten the health of the game.
Absolutely.
Just on at every level.
I mean, think about the Concussion movie that just came out. Everyone was like, oh, is the Concussion movie going to sink the NFL? And Concussion movie comes out, and then the next week, it's the highest watched football game in recent history. You know what I mean? So as a society, you look at that, and it's like, can anything really take down the NFL right now? It's got to be massive movement of people, but I just don't see it happening. It's too popular.
Honestly, I feel like just not a biased opinion. I used to play rugby and stuff. I used to play football. When I played football, I got 10 times more injuries than rugby. People use their helmets, their pads, everything as a weapon rather than protection, like what they're used for. Honestly, maybe if, like, just a suggestion, maybe if you went like a padless route, taught people how to actually tackle and not, spear, aim for the head, anything like that.
Torpedo.
Yeah, it would be a safer sport because I mean, sure you get hurt, maybe like some broken bones or something, but you're not going to have like the concussions, the mental damage, all that. So I mean, there are options. It's just like you're so used to how football is.
And I think players would prefer. I mean, if I can't put myself in a player's shoes. I'm not an NFL player, but I would think that most players would take a knee injury or something like that over a brain injury. You know what I mean? Now, knowing what we know now, concussions used to be, you got your bell rung, just right back in the game.
Yeah.
But now knowing that, I mean, Junior Seau, you know what I mean? To know that played a pivotal role in that man's suicide is a horrible thing, and players see that now, and it's got to do something. But Junior Seau is not enough, Frank Gifford's not enough. Those types of things, those types of brain injuries.
I mean, you can tear your ACL, working on the car in the garage. You're probably not going to get CTE.
Yeah.
In that same scenario. But I mean, like we already mentioned, the NFL owns a day of the week that the church used to own. I mean, in that way, I mean that's maybe that's a strong statement.
Well, they have the mornings.
Yeah,
like the afternoon.
but in serious ways, I mean that's kind of the way it is. So it would take something drastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So let's move on a little bit to Cam Newton, the Panthers, going up against Peyton Manning and the Broncos. We have two options right here. I think let's start off with talking about Cam Newton's been getting a lot of grief for all the dabbing and stuff, even though everything he does is, just sort of friendly and all that. He helps little kids, he gives balls away, all this. So what's your take? Because me personally, like if Aaron Rodgers can do the belt, then
thing, yeah.
Why can't Cam dab?
I hate to say this, but I think that race comes in as an issue here. I think that he gets scrutinized for celebrating as sort of a racial bias. And that's really unfortunate because how many times does Gronk score a touchdown and the first thing he does is just spike the ball? You know what I mean? And I don't see that as very different than doing
I mean, it's even called the Gronk spike.
Exactly. Brady does the same thing. Brady celebrates more than most players in the league, and you don't see him getting scrutinized for those types of things.
He also pouts on the ground more than most players.
That's true.
I think it's odd that excessive celebration normally does not get called in a spiking the ball situation. But if you've have this dance you've been working on all week that you really want to bust out because you just caught an 80-yard bomb, like that gets called. I feel like it's just as flaunting, one way or the other. But in the case of Cam and just people question where he's coming from, his heart kind of thing in those situations. Is it all about him?
Yeah.
And that's what people say that are critics of that. I mean, I feel like at this point, after having all the media attention they've had all year, having only lost one game and being going to the Super Bowl, more people are on the side of Cam Newton at this point, and
Absolutely.
just him saying, I think he's a good guy. I think that's just the way. He's obviously happy about winning a football game, and you're going to do something. Yeah.
Well, and the thing about it is what team does more for the fans than the Panthers right now? I mean, Cam Newton starts giving the ball to kids in the stands, and what every other player starts taking up on that. Kuechly's getting pick sixes and doing that.
Yeah.
I can deal with a little bit of dancing. I think that's the one thing about the Panthers is they're having fun doing what they do, and I think. I don't know why the NFL wants to make it so serious when it's entertainment. You know what I mean? These guys are out there putting their bodies on the line. If they score a touchdown and they want to celebrate, that's fine with me. Now, what I don't want to see is a whole coordinated team effort where I've seen those celebrations.
The bowling pins where you get half the team involved.
It's funny, and I like that, but if it's really taking away from the game, but how many, it's a lot of it has to do with taking away from commercial time and things like that. That's really what it comes down to. And I just think that this Panthers team, they thrive on that energy. The whole team does. And if that's how you play, whatever. Take the penalty even if it really comes down to it. I mean, the Panthers have been blowing most teams out anyway. You know what I mean? At least in the first half. Take a celebration here or there.
And it's different. I mean, they're winning and they're celebrating. I would personally have a problem with it if we were having, well, I say we, but if the Panthers were having a terrible season.
Yeah.
And you're down by 35 in the fourth, and then you're doing that whole thing. I mean, even Cam knows where to draw the line.
Yeah.
I recall in the Giants game where they blew that huge lead, and I'm pretty sure it was tied 35-35, and Cam just ran over a guy for a first down. And normally in the first quarter, if they're up, he's definitely doing the whole point first down thing. But he was very much more businesslike. He was like, okay, I can't mess around here. The game's on the line. So also picking and choosing when you're doing it within the context of the game, I feel like is important.
Yeah, for sure. And celebrating when they're losing out. Who comes to mind is Odell Beckham. You know what I mean? Like, and even then, I don't really have a huge problem with it. These guys are out there putting their body on the line. Who cares if they do a little dance? I mean, most of the time, what do the fans do? The fans love it. They start doing it. It creates a movement. I mean, there's car commercials in Charlotte right now where like the guys are on location outside of cars doing the dab and stuff. Like, it's a fun thing, and it's fun for the city of Charlotte.
Becoming like a household thing.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever. Yeah. I just don't understand all the hoopla associated with it.
So, Cam Newton's probably, even with all the scrutiny and everything, he's probably going to be dabbing all the way to this, in the Super Bowl, everything like that. What are some things that he needs to look out for? Because Denver does have one of the, if not the best defense going on right now.
I would think number one, Von Miller. I mean, that whole defense, Ware, obviously, the whole defense is terrific, but Von Miller particularly has played just out of his mind in this second portion of the season. I ran into someone the other day who was talking about the game. He was a Broncos fan, and he was just saying, I mentioned how that, Peyton has been playing, some better in the playoffs, and his argument was it doesn't even really matter if Peyton even throws a touchdown, throws for 100 yards. I mean, with the way that defense is playing, they can single-handedly win you the game, and I totally agree with him. That's what makes me a little unnerved about, watching the Super Bowl. I don't think Peyton is going to lead them to a fourth quarter comeback drive when the score is like 40-40. Yeah. But I do think their defense could beat the Panthers.
Well, going off of that, fun fact stat of the day is Luke Kuechly actually has more postseason touchdowns than all Broncos wide receivers combined. Excluding tight end Owen Daniels, but it's Peyton Manning doesn't have to be Peyton Manning for this to happen. No. Like, it really does lie on the defense. And to an extent, that's almost the same as the Panthers. Cam is doing really well on offense. He's getting the ball to all of his receivers. He's playing really well. But in the end, I think this is going to be a really defensive game.
Absolutely. I mean, Brady in last week's game, Von Miller, Brady gets the ball out faster than any quarterback in the league. He's almost impossible to sack. It's not always, you see the low sack numbers, and it's really not the fact that he has this amazing line. It's the fact that they draw up schemes where it's a lot of underneath routes. It's getting the ball off to Edelman. It's getting the ball to Gronk and let him run somebody over. It's a lot of short underneath routes. And so to not only be able to slow that down, but to be able to really stop Brady when no one could do it this year was very impressive. And if they do that to Peyton, who's slower than Brady, I can tell you that. He does have a similar situation where his O-line, I don't know this year. They're all right. They show up in some games, but if he's on if Cam's on the ground a lot, I don't know. I really don't know what to expect.
Well, to me, I feel like Denver and Peyton is playing the same Super Bowl they played 2 years ago. And as a Panthers fan, I hope the outcome is similar.
Sure turns the same.
Yeah, but, they're playing a team, they're playing a team that has a terrific defense, has a quarterback that can beat you but doesn't have to beat you and, could easily win you that game if he's just a game manager and, has a strong running game. Obviously you're playing two different teams and so I'm sure they can't really go back and watch the tape on, the Seahawks game because obviously they're not playing the Seahawks. But to those players who played in that game, which was most of their roster, I'm sure it'll feel similar in many ways.
Yeah, it should be interesting. Cam Newton can be the X factor because I think that the Panthers' offense can be way more high-powered than Denver's offense this year.
Oh, yeah.
They have so-so everywhere. It would take Demaryius Thomas playing out of his mind, I think, for the Broncos to really make something happen. So it's really going to be, if it's a defensive struggle, can Cam make the plays? And I think he's the type of quarterback, he's built to make the play. A clutch first down, he's not stuck like Manning where he's got to pass it.
Yeah.
And now Manning did have a nice carry last week, but you're not going to see that.
What was it,
very
12
often.
yards, I think?
Yeah, and if Kuechly's spying you, he's not getting 5 yards.
No.
You know what I mean? And so Cam Newton's got to be that guy who makes a play here or there. He doesn't have to have 400 yards and 5 touchdowns. He's got to have clutch third down conversions, I think. But it'll be interesting.
So who do you think is, aside from Von Miller, running for the sacks and stuff, who do you think is going to be the biggest threat against Cam, like in the passing game?
I mean, Akeem Talib comes to mind, in the secondary. But I don't know. I mean, Cam, honestly, he has played so well right now that it is hard to think of a scenario where he would just, be completely shut down or completely ineffective. But one thing that I hope, doesn't kind of come back to bite him is really ever since he's came into the league, he's always had a very strong arm. Mm-hmm. Occasionally he has missed high, and if you miss high, oftentimes that leads to picks,
Safeties.
Especially if you're throwing over the middle. Yeah, like you said, your deep safety. So, really hoping that does not become an issue. But other than that, as long as they don't make mistakes and shoot themselves in the foot, I think they'll be fine.
Well, Cam's obviously made it to the playoffs and stuff before, but this is his first time on the big stage. He talks about he's been preparing for this his whole life, this, that, the other. But do you think it will have any mental effect? Do you think he might be overanalyzing his passes, everything, or do you think he'll stay calm?
I think he's a natural winner. That's the thing about Cam Newton is even before he transferred to Auburn in college, he wanted Division II.
Blinn.
Yeah, or Division III or whatever,
Yeah.
and then transfers into Auburn, wins a national championship. I think this is the logical progression for him. He seems to step up and play better in the big moments. I mean, the national championship that he played in was just, that whole run to the
unreal.
national championship was incredible.
With a bad coach and a bad team.
Yeah, whatever he needs
Yeah.
to make something happen, it just seemed to happen. And I think, like I said, he can be that X factor. I mean, if it shows that you can beat Denver running the read option, run the read option. If it's underneath routes, I think he can kind of make anything happen.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's facing a tough secondary, perhaps the toughest secondary he's played all year, but the whole scheme isn't designed around chucking it up and passing all the time.
No.
It's just moving the ball, getting 5 yards, getting, third down conversions.
And one more point about Peyton Manning and that offense. If they are effective, I think it will take some of those kind of plays like I saw in the AFC Championship game. One pass comes to mind. He hit Emmanuel Sanders down the sideline for 35 yards, but it was a bad ball.
Yeah.
I mean, Sanders had to, if not for the DB not looking back for the ball, that gets picked. So I think it would take those extra effort kind of plays from their receivers for them to be able to move the ball effectively and have a chance.
Okay, so real fast, we do have a little under 5 minutes left. Let's shift over to the NBA real fast. There are some trade rumors coming up. We won't really touch on the upcoming All-Star game and stuff because just like the Pro Bowl and the NHL, it's sort of iffy.
Yeah.
But trade rumors, Blake Griffin rumored to go places. Kevin Durant maybe. Rudy Gay almost definitely, because what's a trade session without moving Rudy Gay around? So what are y'all's thoughts on anything NBA related?
On the names that you mentioned, I would say it goes Rudy Gay is either most likely or definitely going to be traded. It's right in there. It's very close on the cusp. And then Blake Griffin as potential, and then the Kevin Durant under no way right now. But I think Blake Griffin is the most interesting situation. Rudy Gay will go somewhere to a team that's not really going to make something happen. He's not a guy who's ever going to be a good small forward on a winning team. He's just not. The Kings are actually
might make the 8th seed possibly.
Yeah, whatever. But he's not ever going to be the guy that it falls back on. But Blake Griffin, the situation there, how often does a star like that become available? And over a situation like
when they punch in equipment.
Yeah, I mean, he's at the beginning of this season, people are like, he's the franchise player there. I mean, yes, you have Chris Paul, but it's kind of like this dual star thing. And now it's, hey, let's ship him off, see what we can get. He's a problem over one altercation. I don't know. If I'm any team, I'm trying to pick him up.
I don't think he goes anywhere. I mean, you look at, well, in my opinion, Chris Paul might be the better option. Even though he is the point guard that stirs the drink for them, I feel like you can get, especially at his age, something more comparable in return for Chris Paul than you could for Blake Griffin. Blake is what, 26, going on 27. I think he's closer to 26 than 27.
Yeah.
Whereas Chris Paul is closer to 31 than he is 30 at this point. And with him down low, I feel like that is a much better building block than keeping around Paul. I mean, if you're going to trade anyone, I personally don't think they should bust up any of that team, other than possibly add a few parts. But the problem that they face right now is that they play in a Western Conference that has Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, and Draymond Green.
Yeah.
And they're just not going to win the West. I mean, I say that. I mean, I guess they could.
That they won't. But they won't.
But
they fall short on
they
years
won't.
before Golden
So-
State was that good.
So they're getting itchy as to, whoa, man, we got to do something. We got to mix it up. But in reality, they have the best team that they could probably assemble right now, and it's not going to be good enough. But you're better off to keep what you have than to not.
All right, so we are out of time today. I believe the trade deadline is February 18th, so we will definitely keep up with all the rumors, everything like that. Talk about it more next week. So that's it for Sports Bar this week. As always, I'd like to invite you to leave your comments, questions, concerns at www.watchapptv.com. Until next time, I'm Robin Palmer.